What up, YouTube? Back at it again. We are finishing up the Ruby Franke story. I'll keep this brief. Thank you for joining. If you're here from my other channel, appreciate it very much. Since posting the first portion of this, part one, if you haven't seen it, I don't even think I titled it part one. I only made it through half of it though. But we're gonna finish this up right now. It's on the Long Crime channel. I will link that down below. But thanks for coming. We're slowly growing this channel, so I do definitely appreciate you guys watching it. Even since posting that first part, I did get a lot of response from just wild stuff. You need to go see this. It gets way deeper. So I might dive in. This type of stuff makes me sad. It's like why I don't watch the news. It's just like horrific stuff. I'd rather be happy when people use media for the most part as an outlet, an escape from their day, which might not be the best day, and to put some depressing stuff on, like I just don't like it. It's probably why I watch sports, just because it's just games. It can't really be taken too seriously, right? Or sitcoms. I got Two and a Half Men on back here. Not serious at all. Anyways, let's dive in and finish this up. Learn more about the rise and fall of Ruby Franke. We just introduced, I think, the therapist, right? And this is the lawyer who's trying to figure out a way out of this one.
What was going on, and knew they were coming for her, and called him and said, "This is an emergency," even though she hadn't reached out to him for months and months and months before that. She reached out to him when it was an emergency, knowing she could rely on him to help his kids. All he knows is he got a text from her that said, "Emergency, need to speak with you." He was at work, and
I need to refresh my memory. His lawyer?
And text back and said, "I'm at work. What's up?" And she said, "I need to speak."
I know it's wrong. I probably look tan. That's my birthday tan. Happy birthday, Zack.
You immediately.
Welcome to the late 20s.
"I'm at work. What's up?" And she said, "I need to speak to you immediately."
You know what was really interesting is that Kester said that Jody Hildebrandt was the catalyst for this. According to Kester, Kevin agreed to have Jody counsel the couple, but she portrayed him as greedy and self-absorbed and that he needed to move out. Kevin apparently did all this to get his family back. Kester says Kevin wanted to stay with the family, but he and Ruby separated on the advice of Jody.
But Ruby felt like there were differences in their marriage, and at one point, in conjunction with Jody Hildebrandt, it was sort of like, we have to separate to save our marriage. You know, we'll keep working on our marriage, but for now, you know, if we're gonna repair our marriage and be back together as a family, you have to be away, and you have to work on yourself, and don't have contact with the kids. Don't have contact with me unless I initiate it.
Dude, making him feel like the bad guy? Yo, all right.
And Kester also revealed what his clients said would happen during Jody Hildebrandt's group therapy sessions.
During the separation, Kevin was attending men's groups that were facilitated by Jody, and during those groups, he was being downgraded and diminished, and told how bad he was, and that he needed to repent, and that the best way to repent was to not infect his family with his problems, and you know, so that's why you need to stay away.
So this is all religious driven. If we're talking about like men's groups that are guiding him to repent and making him feel, you know, dude, that's wild.
He wasn't the only one in those men's groups that was undergoing exactly what he was undergoing at her suggestion and recommendation.
To be clear, by the way, Kevin has not been criminally charged in this case. He hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing. And Kester says that Kevin is actively working to get back custody of his children. But what you just heard from Kevin's attorney is eerily similar to what others have said about Jody Hildebrandt. You see, other people who were counseled by Hildebrandt have come forward with stories of manipulation, coercion, and even torture. Which brings us to Hildebrandt's niece, Jessie Hildebrandt. Now, to let you know, Jessie uses the pronouns they and them. Well, after Jody's arrest, Jessie shared their story with us on Sidebar about living with their aunt for a period of time as a teenager.
Jody is, in my experience, one of the most intelligent human beings I've ever come in contact with. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, apparently Jessie had been living with their parents in California, but says during a family visit in Utah, they just left them there. Yeah, and they ended up living with Jody.
Jody is very smart in how she approaches her therapeutic modalities. Because they are so extreme, if she were just to start out with those things, everyone would recognize it and they would be shocked and it'd be like, absolutely not. But she's very subtle. She's very subtle and she's very calculated, and she's it's like a frog being boiled in water. You know, you start off with the cold water and slowly turn up the temperature, much how it was. So
Is that how you boil a frog? I've never boiled a frog. I have no idea. You learn something new every day, right?
it started off with me at my grandparents and at Jody's on the weekend, and then it quite quickly became me living with her full time. And then I was pulled out of school, so I wasn't allowed to go to school.
Why?
So I would just be with her at her office. She would put me into this little side room where I would just wait there and while she, like, up to 12 hours a day.
Jessie told us about some of the extreme punishments that they claim Jody Hildebrandt viewed as therapeutic.
So she strips you of identity, she strips you of credibility, and she isolates. And so she's saying everything that you say is a lie. Everything that you say is manipulation. You're manipulating everyone around you. You're lying and destroying everyone's life. So for the sake of everyone else's safety, we're duct taping you. So I was sleeping outside in the snow. That was another thing. I wasn't allowed to have a bed. I was sleeping in what she told everyone that it was like a mummy bag, you know, Sub-Zero type of sleeping bag. No, it was absolutely not. This was a like $20 Walmart store brand you use at sleepovers kind of sleeping bag. Outside in the snow in the middle of winter in Utah. And her justification, because I ended up going to the police, her justification to the police was that she was preparing me for outdoor wilderness therapy. And this was like a kindness to me to give me one more opportunity to confess to sin.
Jessie says that after all this, they were eventually able to escape from Jody Hildebrandt.
The door happened to not be locked. And there was this moment, this like very electrifying epiphany of a moment where I was like, if I don't leave now, I'm never getting out. Like, I have to save myself.
Now, I need you to keep in mind...
How does this shit go on this long? And, like, all right. I mean, I'll keep my personal views on religion aside. But to each their own. If responsible, respectful, and not harmful to yourself or others, and not forced upon. But if something gets you out of bed and makes you happy, then you choose whichever God you want to pray to, or gods, or rocks, or superheroes, or I don't care. But how is when police are involved, or when any word gets out of things like this, I don't understand how today this type of stuff can go overlooked, and the fact that like I'm just oblivious, and this is probably this probably happens routinely, like is incredible to me. It blows my mind.
What you just heard when I explained to you in a minute what we found out about what happened to Eve and Russell Franke. By the way, while behind bars, it's our understanding Jody has agreed that her license be limited, meaning she won't practice as a clinical mental health counselor until her legal case gets resolved. Now you fast forward.
See, and you know somebody's a little bent, first of all. This is my justification. So that mic right there, I used to have that. They offer it in a really nice, like a cool blue, like a metallic blue color. When you choose that red, that says something about you. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. The blue is so fresh that I feel like if you choose that, you're probably a bad person anyways. Yeah. That's how I justify things. Just kidding. Not a bad mic. I couldn't figure it out.
Now you fast forward to November 29th, and we learn that Kevin Franke officially filed for divorce from Ruby. The divorce petition is a private document, but a public injunction was also filed, laying out all these rules to prevent things like harassment between Ruby and Kevin. Randy Kester, again, Kevin's attorney, alluded to us that irreconcilable differences was the grounds for the divorce, and that once Kevin learned what it...
I'm sorry. You know what's weird? If you guys want to watch this, it's linked down below. Like I said in the first video, without me pausing all the time. Usually when somebody's a bit bent and are missing something upstairs, like you can actually see like a coldness like in their eyes, or a blankness or something. Like I don't like she doesn't really depict that. I mean, she's got a punchable smile. No, I don't hit women and I don't condone that. I'm just saying, like, it's a little cringe. But she seems like, you know, your next door neighbor, the sweet Mrs. Clark, who, you know, from time to time forgets to, you know, pick up her kids' toys outside. Oh, you silly. You left it out there again. It's in the yard. Oh, I got you. But you know what I'm saying, though. I'm making jokes, but like usually you can see like something is wrong visibly, but like you don't really get that. She just kind of seems like a sweet kid. Gone way wrong.
Us that irreconcilable differences was the grounds for the divorce, and that once Kevin learned what had happened to his children, he decided to officially end the marriage. Now, between September and December, other than the divorce filing and learning that a speeding citation that Franke had been dropped, there was very little action in the case. Very little happened. But behind the scenes, and what we didn't know, was that Ruby's legal team and prosecutors were working out a plea deal. And then we find out that there were separate waiver hearings scheduled for both Ruby and Jody. That's when a criminal defendant in Utah can waive a preliminary hearing in the case. Preliminary hearing is where the prosecutors present evidence to a judge to determine if there's sufficient probable cause to move forward in the case. Why would a defendant waive a preliminary hearing? If they decide to plead guilty. And that is what happened. On Monday, December 18th, Ruby Franke appeared in the courtroom in a jail jumpsuit, and she told the judge she was agreeing to plead guilty to 4 of the 6 child abuse counts.
Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5.
She's putting on this face of like remorse, like she's taking a deep breath, like I have to eat this. Dude, you know what you did. You know. Like we have laws. You know, these are your children. Where's your heart at, dude?
Aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony.
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony.
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
All right, never mind. I take back what I just said about her not seeming like a lunatic. She kind of does. Just the way that how fake that is. With my deepest regret, and for my family. Wow.
As if the plea itself wasn't stunning enough, the plea agreement documents filed with the court were shocking. And that is because they laid out just what happened to Ruby's youngest children in the Ivins home. And I will tell you, it was absolutely sickening. I'm going to go through these admissions, and I want to read all of it to you because that's how bad it is. It is important that you understand what happened.
Oh, I can't wait.
And I should note that this abuse occurred over a 3-month period, over the summer from May to August. Think about the heat of those months. You'll see why. And by the way, another important note, it says that Ruby inflicted the injury or allowed another to inflict the injury, meaning Jody Hildebrand. So first, Ruby pled guilty to count 1, aggravated child abuse of RF, Russell, her 11 to 12-year-old son. The reason I say that is because it sounds like this abuse happened before and through his birthday. We haven't gotten confirmation about that, but it does say 11 to 12. Now, count 1 is about physical injury that includes physical torture. And it reads, quote, "The defendant's actions involve the physical torture of RF. Initially, RF was forced to do physical tasks for hours and days at a time. These included wall sits, carrying boxes full of books up and down stairs, and working outside. Eventually, RF was forced to do outside labor without shoes and in the summer heat." He was
All right, I'm not. It sounds like what they force adults to do, who do it electively in a CrossFit competition, but we're talking about like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, right? Unwillingly. That's wild.
He was forced to stand in the direct sunlight for several days. He was forced to remain outside at all hours of...
All right, never mind. That's wild.
Forced to stand in the direct sunlight for several days. He was forced to remain outside at all hours of the day and night by extended periods of time. These actions resulted in repeated and serious sunburns with blistered and sloughing skin. RF was denied adequate water for several of the days he was required to remain in the summer heat, and he was punished when he secretly consumed water. He was denied sufficient food, and when given food, he was given very plain meals, example, rice and chicken, while others in the house ate regular and more flavorful meals. He was isolated from other people and denied all forms of entertainment, including books, notebooks, and electronics. In addition, after RF attempted to run away in July, his hands and feet were regularly bound. Binding included being tied to the defendant and to weights. Many times, the binding included using 2 sets of handcuffs, one on RF's wrists and one on his ankles. At times, with RF lying on his stomach, ropes were used to tie the 2 sets of handcuffs together so that his arms and lower legs were lifted off the ground. The bindings resulted in injuries to RF's wrists and ankles where the handcuffs cut through the skin and damaged the muscle tissue. These injuries were treated with homeopathic remedies and covered with duct tape. Then the bindings were placed on top of the duct tape. Specific instances of abuse committed by the defendant include 1. Kicking RF while wearing boots, 2. Holding his head underwater, and 3. Cutting off oxygen by placing her hands over his mouth and nose. We never knew
This bitch shouldn't be alive.
these details before. And for me, this was worse than anything I could have thought. Then she pled guilty to count 3 in the original charging document. Count 3 is about aggravated child abuse, again, on Russell, but it is about physical injury causing emotional harm. The actions described above caused severe emotional harm to RF due to the fact that they began in May and escalated throughout the summer months. Additionally, the defendant and another adult regularly sought to indoctrinate RF and convince him that he was evil and possessed, and that he needed to willingly be obedient to avoid punishments, and that the punishments were necessary to repent. He was also told that everything that was being done to him were acts of love. That
Where is she now in prison? Where we'll figure it out. Because people don't last long in jail when you mistreat a child like that. And whenever she gets out, if she gets out, there's a street justice that people don't necessarily like how we sometimes I don't know. We kind of let some criminals off for quote unquote good behavior or different things here and there. I don't really want my tax dollars paying for her jail time though. That's wild. This shit is sickening.
manipulation, does that sound familiar from what we heard from Jesse Hildebrandt and from Kevin's attorney? Moving on, Ruby pled guilty to count 5 in the original charging document. This is about the abuse of Eve, Ruby's then...
Look how old this girl is.
...9-year-old daughter. And this is about injury resulting in emotional harm. The defendant's actions also caused severe emotional harm to EF. Other than binding and the specific instances of abuse RF was subjected to, EF was subjected to the same treatment as her brother. She was isolated and forced to do the physical tasks, remain outside, and denied food and water. She was also repeatedly told she was evil and possessed. The punishments were necessary for her to be obedient and to repent, and these things were being done to her in order to help her. EF was convinced that she was evil and needed to go through these things in order to repent. 9 years old. Unbelievable. And we see this so many times in these kinds of cases where the victim...
I don't. This is why I don't watch this shit, man. I don't see this so many times. It pisses me off.
...are led to believe that it is their fault and that this is done to help them. Now, the last count that Ruby Franke pled guilty to was number 6 in the original information. This was abuse that constituted physical injury that includes multiple injuries, a charge specific to Eve. The defendant's actions caused 2 or more physical injuries to EF. She was forced to work outside in the heat barefoot. She was also forced to run barefoot on dirt roads for an extended period of time.
Dude, the sunburns alone, like...
EF's feet were repeatedly injured by, and she was repeatedly sunburned. When examined on August 30th, these wounds were apparent by scabs, blisters, and sloughing skin. So that is what Ruby Franke pled guilty to.
I don't know the word sloughing. I need to look that up.
And admit it.
I can glean it from the context, but I don't know that word.
In a press conference right after...
Chafing, burnt, like overburnt.
After the hearing, prosecutor Eric Clark talked about what's next for Ruby Franke.
She will remain incarcerated awaiting sentencing, which will occur, and the date was February 20th, I believe.
Dude in the background is recognizable. Or somebody's in a lot of movies that looks just like that. And he always plays the same role, right? You know what I'm talking about?
We are pleased that Mrs. Franke has accepted responsibility for her criminal actions and that justice is being served to the extent possible in this type of a situation. We're grateful for the law enforcement officers, caseworkers, Children's Justice Center staff, and others that have been instrumental in the fair and speedy resolution of this case. Because the alleged facts of the ongoing case involving Jody Hildebrand are intertwined with this case, our office will not be making additional statements to the media at this time.
Now, something to add here before this hearing happened. Ruby's law firm released a statement announcing that she was going to plead guilty. And in this statement, listen to who Ruby throws under the bus. It states, quote, Ruby Franke is a devoted mother and is also a woman committed to constant improvement.
Yo, she took a shot right back at the girl, dude. That's amazing.
Initially, Ms. Franke believed that Jody Hildebrand had the insight to offer a path to continual improvement. Ms. Hildebrand took advantage of this quest and twisted it into something heinous. Over an extended period, Ms. Hildebrand systematically isolated Ruby Franke from her extended family, older children, and her husband, Kevin Franke. This prolonged isolation resulted in Ms. Franke being subjected to a distorted sense of morality shaped by Ms. Hildebrand's influence.
You're a grown-ass woman, all right? You're an adult.
Now, I have to believe that one of the reasons prosecutors allowed this plea deal to happen and why Ruby even agreed to it, and I should tell you, 2 charges were dropped. Yeah, there were 2 charges that were dropped for this deal. These were about injuries resulting in starvation or malnutrition. Could have been because they were duplicative of the other charges, or it was some benefit that Ruby got to agreeing to the deal. But either way, I believe one of the reasons we saw this happening was not to only save the time and expense and heartache of a trial, and maybe Ruby will get some sort of leniency by pleading guilty, but also to spare her 2 young children from having to testify against their mom. And if you believe that Franke realizes the error of her ways,
I'm sure
then maybe that makes sense. And I should tell you, this doesn't mean that Ruby is not going to get prison time, or even minimal prison time. You see, she is scheduled to be sentenced in February. Each of these child abuse counts carries a prison term of...
Oh, February is last month. I have no idea what she said. It better be for a really, really long time. Otherwise, you give me the address of the prison and I'll send a rope.
1 to 15 years, and the agreement states the sentences will run consecutively, meaning one after the other.
Yeah.
Plus, in Utah, it's our understanding that they use an indeterminate sentencing scheme, which means that a judge doesn't determine how long she goes away for, but rather the Board of Pardons and Parole will ultimately determine when she can be released.
And you know the weird thing about that is I don't know that, like, by the time she gets out, and let's say, and you guys might obviously know way more than me about this. First of all, she's never going to be really a part of raising her own children or anybody else's, right? We can kind of assume that. But I don't know that she's like, I mean, is she, we'll find out. This might be a dumbass question, but like, is she beyond like that entire ridiculous, like, what is she a danger to outside of that? Because she would need control over other individuals in order to enable these actions, and she's lost all that, including credibility moving forward to even put herself in any sort of situation where that would be allowed. I feel like, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking ahead, like where, because I mean, yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, it's disgusting. I'm trying to think of like, what do you do with an individual like this? No one wants. You're not. No one's gonna hire her. No one wants to marry her. What do you? I mean, you're gonna get a ton of media after you. You can make some money there. But how do you fix your life? Do you take like I'm a sports fan, we'll say like the Mike Vick approach, and you just be as sorry as possible and just own it. Like, this is a situation that I sort of fell into because of my upbringing and this, and this, and I messed up real bad and I own that. And then you get into mental healing and teaching, and you spend a lot of time with yourself and a lot of time with others who have been through the same thing, or something similar-ish. Anyways, we'll let him finish up here.
In other words, Ruby could be going away for a very long time. And it is not surprising, based on what we just heard, that she did. It's also not surprising that in the divorce documents with Kevin, it seems, at least to me, she's not really fighting him on custody and is supporting his efforts to get the kids. Makes sense if she's going to be behind bars.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Now, where does that leave Jody Hildebrandt
also
in all
in jail,
this?
hopefully.
She's got a hearing scheduled on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. So far, there's been no word about whether she'll take a plea, and her defenses at this point are really not great. But what do we know? As part of Ruby Franke's plea deal, she agrees to testify against Jody Hildebrandt.
Yo, of course she's going to roll over. And whatever damage you do less to me, I'll put everything on that woman, right? They're both at fault. I mean, and both of them should probably be in jail forever. It's just, I don't know how you fix a brain that's already wired like that. These are adults. I don't know.
We are going to bring you all of the new developments as they happen in this case. But in the meantime, thanks for watching us here on Sidebar. I'm Jesse Weber.
Jesse, thank you. You did a good job. That's tough stuff to get through too. Fuck. All right, well, sleepy time tea's kicking in, which means I'm about to go to bed. This is not how I wanted to end my birthday watching this. I make bad decisions. It's Tuesday though, you know. We'll do something better with our time tomorrow. Anyways, I did want to finish this up. If you guys made it to the end, thank you very much. Thanks for joining the new channel here. I'm sleepy. But yeah, make sure you like, comment. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Appreciate it very much. It does help the channel. We're going to be doing all sorts of fun stuff. I'll talk to you on the next.